Her captor was looming over her with a sharp surgical scalpel. She was chained to the floor of the dimly lit cottage. For weeks, she had endured unimaginable torture, including beatings with nunchucks and slashes to her body. But when she finally summoned the strength to fight back, it dawned upon her it was too late. Her torturer had a more sinister plan in store for her, one that would make her long for a quick death. It wasn't the slice of a sharp blade to her throat, nor the piercing stab to her heart. No, it was something far more gruesome. She was to be stripped of her very skin while still alive. The terror that gripped her was indescribable, as she realized the full extent of agony that awaited her at the hands of her torturer in her final moments. Today we dive deep into the most perplexing mysteries of our time. The chilling case of Katarzyna Zowada, a young woman who was skinned alive. With a web of conflicting evidence and unanswered questions, this case will leave you on the edge of your seat. So, buckle up and join us on this journey as we attempt to unravel the mystery behind Katarzyna Zowada's untimely demise. Do you enjoy listening to tales about the wicked and the dark? Then you will love this tale. Katarzyna Zowada was a 23-year-old student studying religion at Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland. Her family and friends knew her as Kasia, a music enthusiast who loved bands associated with the hippie movement, particularly the Grateful Dead. Kasia had a close relationship with her father, whom she often went on outdoor excursions with. Unfortunately, on an outdoor hike in 1995, her father had a hiking accident that left him with a spinal injury that ultimately led to his death. This tragedy had a profound effect on Kasia, causing her to withdraw and become depressed, believing she was responsible for the accident. Her mother Marta had sought help for her, and Kasia was undergoing therapy for 3 years. She was expected to meet her mother at one of these sessions in November 1998, but when she didn't show up, it raised concerns as Kasia was known to be a willing patient who desperately wanted guidance. It was a cold November day when Kasia went missing, and her mother Marta was left with a myriad of frightening possibilities to consider. She reported Kasia's disappearance to the police. Sadly, the authorities didn't take her concerns seriously. Kasia was an adult after all, and they assumed she would eventually resurface. Unwilling to give up hope, Marta hired a private detective to investigate her daughter's disappearance. Kasia had seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving her mother to desperately search for any information about her whereabouts. The wait was agonizing, but Marta would have to wait until January 6, 1999. It was on that fateful day that a gruesome discovery was made. In the wintry depths of Krakow, as the clock struck the midnight hour, a tugboat by the name of the Elk slowly navigated its way up the murky waters of the Vistula River. Without warning, the propeller suddenly gave out, causing the vessel to drift perilously close to the shore. The captain and his crew assessed the damage. It wasn't long before their attention was drawn to a peculiar object wrapped around the propeller. At first, they assumed it was just some discarded fabric or leather, but as they carefully disentangled the mass, they were met with a ghastly sight: a human ear. Panic set in as the crew realized the severity of the situation. They quickly contacted the authorities, who arrived on the scene and began a meticulous search of the area. The police were initially baffled by the perpetrator's expertise in skinning, leading them to believe it was the work of an experienced animal hide remover, like a hunter or butcher or surgeon. Despite their best efforts, the rest of the victim's remains were nowhere to be found, leaving the police with more questions than answers. It took over a week for the police to make any progress in the case, and even then, they only found a few pieces of the victim's remains: her right leg, buttock, and some clothing. The rest of the body parts were never recovered, leaving many questions unanswered. Through DNA testing, they identified the victim as Katarzyna Zowada. As the medical examiner carefully examined the remains of Kasia Zowada, he observed a disturbing detail. Her skin had been expertly removed from her thighs and neck, stopping just short of her left ear. Her face, arms, and even her nipples were missing. An ominous seam ran from beneath her right breast to her left shoulder. As the investigation into Kasia's murder continued, new details emerged that added to the horror of the crime. The pathologist's report revealed that she had been savagely beaten and subjected to torture before her death, and it was suspected that her killer had employed a slow method to bring about her demise. It was also suggested that she may have been alive during the skinning process. As police delved into Katarzyna's movements in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, they uncovered anomalies that raised more questions than answers. One of the most unusual was she didn't attend university lectures for 3 weeks before her mother reported her missing. This was a departure from her normal routine, and it was assumed that something had disrupted her schedule. Police speculated that she may have met someone, possibly a new boyfriend, who had led her off track. She had also changed her hair color from black to blonde and attempted to lose weight, which led them to believe that the killer may have been grooming her for his morbid plan. The killer's twisted plan was becoming clearer, but the question remained: who was he, and how would he be caught? 5 months into the search of Katarzyna's killer, on May 31, 1999, the Krakow police received a call from an elderly man who had found his son's lifeless body in the basement. It was suspected that the man's grandson, Vladimir, was responsible for the murder. When the authorities arrived on the scene, they were confronted with a gruesome sight. The victim, a 50-year-old man, had been decapitated, and his skin had been stripped from his scalp down. It turned out that Vladimir had murdered his father and then worn his skin as a face mask and impersonated him in front of his grandfather. The grandfather, who ultimately called the police, also suffered from poor eyesight, mistook Vladimir for his son. While investigating this gruesome murder, the police were struck by the similarities between this case and that of Katarzyna's. They discovered that Vladimir had attended the same university as Katarzyna, although he had enrolled a year earlier. Despite this, there was no evidence linking Vladimir to Katarzyna's death, and surprisingly, police did not charge him with her murder. However, further investigation revealed that Vladimir's motive for killing his father was revenge for his abandonment of his mother in Russia. He is now serving his sentence in a Russian prison. The case of Katarzyna's murder had gone cold, with no leads or suspects in sight. However, a glimmer of hope appeared when foreign DNA was discovered on Katarzyna's skin. Despite this exciting development, the evidence failed to lead anywhere, leaving law enforcement to grasp at straws. 5 years passed with no significant developments, until a member of the public came forward with information about a mechanic who worked at a morgue and was infatuated with Katarzyna's murder. Robert, a former military serviceman with experience in dissecting corpses, fit the profile of the killer in many ways. He was intelligent but aimless, with a penchant for walking around Krakow and attending the cinema. Further investigations into Robert's past revealed that he had a history of killing animals, including rabbits used in experiments, and had attended a gym where he practiced various martial arts. Although police had suspected him as early as 2000, there was not enough evidence to charge him with the murder of Katarzyna. Despite the lack of closure, the case of Katarzyna's murder remained an unsolved mystery, with Robert J. a prime suspect, and the truth hidden somewhere in the shadows. On the evening of October 4, 2017, nearly 2 decades since Katarzyna's untimely demise, Robert was abruptly halted on the street, apprehended, and ferried to a police station for interrogation. Following his detention, a host of uncanny details came to light. According to newspaper accounts, in the months following Katarzyna's discovery, Robert became increasingly keen towards religion and started attending Mass with alarming frequency. More chilling still were his other actions, including late-night visits to Katarzyna's final resting place, her grave, where he was spotted planting flowers and even burying letters in the vicinity. Despite the authorities' attempts to seize these mysterious letters, they were never found. Further reports emerged, suggesting that Robert had been regularly placing a candle at Katarzyna's gravesite, which only ceased to flicker once it had burned out. Katarzyna's mother also attested to Robert's suspicious activities, and further investigation revealed that he was visiting the grave every single night. Although Robert initially denied any knowledge of Katarzyna, his deceitful nature was eventually exposed. The police recovered a diary that implicated him in her disappearance and murder. The diary contained explicit accounts of his stalking habits, as well as gruesome details about Katarzyna's torture and murder. The diary revealed that Robert had lured Kasia to a remote cottage on the outskirts of Krakow, where he indulged in his twisted desires. Her DNA was later discovered in the bathroom of the property even after 20 years had passed by. Despite this incriminating evidence, Robert strongly maintained his innocence, claiming he had never met the young woman. However, investigators noted that Kasia's injuries indicated she was alive for several weeks after her disappearance, and Robert's diary provided damning insight into the lengths he went to gain her trust. The case was truly disturbing, particularly given the meticulous record of Robert's heinous activities. In the depths of this macabre mystery, it is alleged that Kasia was held captive in a tiny chamber, her right leg shackled with a strap above the ankle joint. But that was just the beginning of the horrors she endured. The medical examiner's report reveals a litany of injuries inflicted upon her: broken pelvis and femur with bodybuilding plates, stab wounds, chop wounds, and lacerations. And it appears that drugs were used to keep her subdued. But even more chilling is the fact that her killer may have attempted to wear her skin. A disturbing piece of evidence emerged in court, suggesting that he removed her skin post-mortem and kept it in his apartment before disposing of it in the river. Yet, contradictory reports leave us unsure if Kasia was skinned alive or not. Has the forensic pathologist failed to determine the truth, or has new information come to light that has refuted this possibility? As the suspect, Robert J., languishes in prison awaiting trial, he has made claims against the prison staff that have only served to slow down proceedings. It's been 6 years, and justice still eludes us. However, the judge deems the evidence against him substantial enough to keep him incarcerated. Justice must be served, and we can only hope for a rapid and fair conclusion to this case. Katarzyna Zowada's life was taken from her in the most sinister and chilling way imaginable. Her killer was a personification of evil, devoid of any compassion, driven only by a perverse satisfaction. Her loved ones are left grappling with the weight of her loss, and justice may offer some solace, but it can never bring her back or undo the horrors she suffered. In her final days, Kasia battled with depression, bereavement, and isolation, struggling to make sense of the world around her. She persisted in her quest for understanding, and though her path was uncertain, she was headed in a direction that now remains forever unknown. Thank you for watching this video on the Katarzyna Zowada case. We hope that you found the information presented in this video to be informative and engaging. The Katarzyna Zowada case is a tragic reminder of the importance of justice and accountability in our society. Remember, everyone deserves to feel safe and respected in their relationships, and we must all work together to make that a reality. Thank you again for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more informative content.